I think I got it this time. Quitting is something that you do, but when you try and quit, relapse is soon to follow. If I told you to try and open a door, what does that even mean? Because when you open a door, it's just something that you did. It required no thought, no planning, it just happened. Versus when you're a kid, you had to focus to open a door, to avoid slipping when you turned the handle, to making sure that you didn't pinch your fingers when you closed the door. Now, opening and closing a door is subconscious at this point in your adult years, just like driving is now compared to when you first started driving, because you had to manage the distance between you and another car. It took a conscious effort to gauge how much you accelerated the gas pedal and how much that you applied the brake. The same could go for turn signals or really any other thing on the dash that you may have looked down to try to adjust and realized that your steering was affected. But at this point in your adult years, a lot of that stuff is just automatic. You don't think about it, it's just something that you can do because it's subconscious. It's something that is automatic in nature. So when you try and quit weed, when you have been smoking for years, you have a real hard time achieving that usually because it's now a subconscious habit that you have. You have to really think, plan, and consciously execute a game plan to sobriety. Relapsing happens because your subconscious mind is addicted to keeping this addiction. That's why at times you might struggle to stay motivated to stay sober. You might find that your mind, as you've been sober for a duration of time, stops necessarily supporting you in your original thinking that helped you quit in the first place. So all these thoughts that you may have had originally to why you wanted to be sober in the first place, why you chose to not only quit, but go through all those withdrawal symptoms that can be very uncomfortable, yet still staying motivated enough to get through to the other side of that. Now, let's say 3 months, 6 months pass, a year passes, and then you relapse, you start smoking again. Well, just before you relapse, let's say a week, maybe 2, you might actually realize that your brain started to debunk, to minimize, or reduce the significance of all those original resources that you had come up with to help you maintain sobriety for as long as you did. So really, all the reasons of quitting in the first place had some kind of internal feeling that was a driving force to maintain sobriety. But when your subconscious mind is hardwired to keep an addiction, you'll end up relapsing. But just before you do, your brain will change those inner feelings and it'll change your perception of those thoughts. You might start to find that you say, hey, you know what? It was a tolerance break. I really didn't have that big of an issue. I'll just smoke on the weekends and I'll be fine. I'll just smoke it in moderation. And I'm in control at this point. Well, that's actually something that you would find in a lot of people that have a history of addiction, that they also say. They say, oh, I'm not an alcoholic. I don't have issues with alcohol. Yet, they still have alcohol in their life, and they may consume more than they should, and at the same time, they still maybe pull back. But it's this oscillating theme in their life. I like to call it the infinity symbol, which is basically like an 8. And in the center of that 8 is a crossroad. And so there's the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And so if you don't have those two aligned in the same goals, in the same desired outcome, what will happen is when you're consciously thinking about staying sober, you're doing all the planning, the executing, you're consciously going about your life, you're dealing with the things that come up and all the stress. And now the subconscious mind starts to debunk all the original reasons that you decided to quit in the first place, that maybe it's not that big a deal. I don't really have an addiction. This is something that's recreational. It's not an issue at this time. And right when it meets that cross point where they both connect, that's where you end up transitioning back into picking that habit back up. Because you do consciously, on some level, choose to start back up again. And so really the willpower that you had in the beginning is often vastly different than the willpower that you had just before you relapsed. That is a definite sign that your subconscious mind and your conscious mind are in conflict, that you're hardwired at this point to keep this problem. Just like if I told you to try to drive like you did when you first started driving, or to open a door like you used to open it, your instincts are going to prevent you from crashing the car like you might have when you were younger in your driving experiences. It would just open the door and you'd walk through. Sure, you can make yourself mess up, but it's not like back when you were new to something that you could just be like you are today. So really what happens is you program your system, and over time that becomes a part of who you are. So if you've smoked for any duration of time, it's really going to take a lot of work consciously to remain vigilant and to kind of ignore these subconscious rewirings or reframing or minimizing the significance of why you chose to be sober in the first place before you might relapse again. That's where I come in to help people, because I deal strictly with the subconscious mind. And in a session, we'll start off with a pretty simple question usually, which is, all right, what's your problem? What would you like to address? Now, obviously, everybody that comes to see me is going to want to quit either nicotine or marijuana. And so they kind of just generally state something along those lines. But as you start asking questions, which is my job to do, and I start seeing different things come up, and I follow the subconscious cues, I follow the little micro expressions in the body language, and I know where to weave the conversation to where things come back up to the surface. Memories that you have suppressed maybe a year ago, a month ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. There tends to be a whole bunch of different things that are wired into your subconscious that are actually keeping you addicted to this marijuana. And you're not necessarily really aware of it, because let's face it, if you knew why you had this addiction, you would just simply decide to change those issues. And then once you've addressed those issues, you wouldn't have an addiction anymore. So really relapsing is just a real easy way for you to understand that this is mostly a subconscious issue. And if anything, congratulate yourself, pat yourself on the back, because you have an immense amount of willpower to quit for however long that you already quit for. The fact that you consciously tried to do something when your system is literally addicted subconsciously to keeping this issue, hence your relapses. You've actually done an exceptional job. You're trying, and a lot of people don't even try to begin with. So for you, be thankful. That's something to commend yourself for, because a lot of people in life choose to just continue down the path that they're in. They don't really try to change much in their life. So if you continue to have this issue and you do nothing about it and you keep relapsing, especially now that you understand that that's going to be pretty much the pattern that you're going to see when it comes to sobriety and relapsing, then what are you looking to see in the next 5, 10, 15 years if you don't change anything about it, especially if you've tried and you've failed? Because at that point, it's not that you're not capable. It's that you're subconsciously anchored to keeping this problem in your life, just like you're anchored to keep the wheel of the vehicle straight, to keep yourself on the road even if you're texting and driving. Something you wouldn't even have imagined doing when you first started driving, because you could barely function to pass your driver's test. So if this is something that you're struggling with and you actually want to address it, reach out to me. We do about a 1 hour phone interview to kind of see if we're a good match and to see if there's really an issue there to begin with that I can help you with. From there, we would go on to a session that can last from 1 to 2 hours. And as we address things in that session, before you leave, you will absolutely understand that you won't be picking up marijuana ever again. Because I get to those subconscious things, and you will have epiphanies and breakthroughs, and you'll leave feeling a difference. There's a vast different experience for a lot of the clients I see, but the theme I've noticed a lot of the times is when you are quitting something that is a subconscious issue, you're trying to stay motivated, and it's something that you work to do. But when it's subconsciously addressed, it is now the driving force. There's no longer an issue. And it's like the weight just comes off their shoulders. The war finally stops, and they can really rationalize, oh, wow, I'm actually going to be able to do this. And then it's really after that, it's, the next week or two past that session, you're finally starting to realize, oh, I don't even really think about smoking anymore. I've gone through a lot of stressful things this last week, and not once did I think about coming home to smoke marijuana. Wow, that's abnormal. That's new. So you kind of get this new experience, this new relationship with getting to know yourself again. And once that starts to kind of take foot and you experience it firsthand, that's where it gets really exciting, because you realize through actions that you've actually let go of this issue altogether. So if that's something you're interested in actually achieving and being done with once and for all, reach out to me. I'll be more than glad to help you out.